Hi guys, is Simon Clarke, Tory MP, a frigging idiot? But I'll get to him in just a minute. Now, there was hope that strike action by the RMT Union would be avoided, but it looks likely it will go ahead during the Christmas period. In this interview, its General Secretary Mick Lynch spelled out the problems it would cause, but he laid the blame squarely on the Tory government, which he claims here is corrupting business. Mick hinted at an ideological war that's been fought against workers and against trade unions by the Tories. Have a listen.
I'm sure that the travelling public will be really disappointed and irritated and angry. What I would ask them to remember, and all those businesses that have been in touch with us, the train operating companies will be indemnified for all of their losses. So my members will lose money, a lot of money as you've set out. The public will lose the convenience of having a train service. The businesses around here and all around London and all over the country will lose money, undoubtedly. The only people that won't lose money are the train operating companies, because the DfT and the Treasury will indemnify them against their losses. This is the most peculiar and perverse industrial dispute you will ever come across, because the people that I'm negotiating with don't suffer any detriment whatsoever. Their lifestyles and their lavish salaries continue in the millions, and the train operating companies that they represent don't have any loss of revenue or any loss of profit. And in fact, they made profits all through the pandemic and all through our strikes. They've made money. And this government is corrupting business in this country. It's punishing brewers, restaurateurs, entertainment industry in return for their ideological pursuit of a dispute with the railways and the trade unions, and to set down a marker against other public sector workers that they've got to be impoverished for the state of the economy that this government drove us into.
And we've got a new, relatively new Transport Secretary said to be making a more positive contribution. Have you seen any evidence of that practically in terms of this dispute?
I don't think the Transport Secretary is making these decisions. I've got to be very frank about that. These decisions are being made for a combination of the Treasury, and I still believe that Grant Shapps is sticking his oar into this dispute, because they knew that if they put driver-only operation back into this debate, it would never fly as a set of proposals. And I think that has come directly from Grant Shapps himself.
Okay, that's really interesting. And I agree with him. I think he's on the ball here when he says that this is an ideological battle that the Tories are waging. And, you know, if you look back at what Grant Shapps himself was starting out with when he was Transport Secretary, he was trying to push through legislation that would make it, would render it obsolete to go on strike, because you would be replaced by agency staff. And this is going to be very disruptive for the travelling public, and it's going to be very disruptive to businesses in the areas affected. It's been calculated it's going to cost about £1 billion a day to businesses, because they rely so much on the Christmas period. But this is the Tories deciding we're going to fight an ideological battle and we're going to hold the country ransom. It's not the rail operator, it's not the railway staff that's holding the country ransom. It's the Conservatives, because they're blocking negotiations. Mick Lynch a few weeks ago was supposed to have a meeting with one of the railway company's bosses, and it was pulled at the last minute. And Mick Lynch said himself that, look, there's only one possibility here, that the minister got involved and blocked the meeting, blocked a resolution of this. And I think it's true. This is about driving a wedge between the public and the workers, trying to turn the public against them, to make it easier for the Tories to push through this legislation, to have the public on side and say, look, we need to punish these workers, we need to lay them off if they go on strike and replace them with agency staff. Now, let me get to Simon Clarke, Tory MP. This is what he tweeted after the news. This is dreadful by the RMT, ruining people's Christmases with an 8% pay rise over 2 years on the table and no compulsory redundancies. Now, inflation is at over 10%. And Simon Clarke is talking about an 8% pay rise over 2 years, so 4% pay rise, as some sort of wonderful deal. Then he goes on to say the railway received £16 billion, £600 per household in emergency funding during COVID. And as Mick Lynch has pointed out, this went to the companies. It didn't go to the workers. And what did the companies do? They paid their shareholders with this money. So the companies were protected. The senior management in the companies were still able to get their massive salaries. And the taxpayer paid for all of this. And then he goes on to say the driver's medium salary is £59,000 and staff is £44,000. The RMT does not represent drivers. Now, either Simon Clarke doesn't know this or he's pretending not to know this. And of course, it's the latter. He knows that the RMT doesn't represent drivers. Drivers are not on strike from the RMT's point of view. This is about painting a narrative that these drivers earn lots of money and they have no reason to go on strike. When it comes to staff, we're talking about cleaners. We're talking about, people who work in the stations. The medium salary for staff is not £44,000. So this is just an attempt, once again, to drive a wedge between those striking and the workers. And we've seen it in Parliament as well, where the Prime Minister stood up and talked about how, they're stopping hard-working people from getting to their place of employment, ignoring the fact that, the people on strike are hard-working. This is ideological. This is about pushing through measures, policies that will make it obsolete, as I said before, obsolete to go on strike. Because if you do, you'll be replaced by agency staff. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.